Well, I guess just the thing that comes to my mind is this idea that the economists always talk about of externalities, right? So we're able to do what we want to do with our own property up to the point where we infringe on our neighbors' rights to do what they want with their property. And so that's when you get into things like, you know, smoking or burning your wood stoves or burn bans, or and I think that's where you start to get into this idea also of the metering. You think about California's had these rolling brownouts, and I'm making a little bit of the argument for the government here, that when you have a limited resource, you have an externality, right? It's you are pulling so much power off the grid, and in order to have some additional benefits like not build another power plant or keep from having these rolling brownouts and to flatten out the load, that they want the ability to meter back that load in some fashion. So I think that's where these issues are going to become very complex, because we are dealing, maybe not in the state of Washington as much because we have excess power that we go out. So I would make the opposite argument in Washington, but in California where they have these rolling brownouts, I might make the argument for an externality and say there's a need to do something. I would try to err not on regulation, but yeah, volunteer programs or voluntarily going to smart metering programs, or, you know, building better plants or whatever. So in California, they already have that. They have, and in different states, like in Minnesota, they have, it's more expensive to use power during the day than it is at night, and so they encourage these systems that, like hydronic heating systems, where you heat the water at night and then you use the heat during the day, those kinds of things. They could do that more with free market solutions, right, with rates and those kinds of things. So there's probably a lot of other ways to do it than to slapping privacy robbing meters on your house. But yeah, you know, government tends to come out during the day when they're working and when you're working, and it's hard to catch them. If you do indeed catch any government agency on your property, do everything you can to file the trespass claim and push against them. We've had cases like that. We've had where people decided not to do it, but I would always encourage people to go after them if they weren't invited. Yeah. I saw the Google car running around down in Olympia the other day, and I was trying to get in the picture, you know. But yeah, it's those are huge issues. Yeah.
You know, I mean, ultimately what this comes down to is central planning and the dangers that central planning represents in our local government, because the technology by itself isn't so much the danger. It's who gets it, what do they do with it. And so, you know, and I want to kind of close here because I know we're running out of time, but a number of years ago, my wife and I were backpacking in Estonia, and we were in rural Estonia, Viljandi, Estonia. There's nothing there, very little. But they have a little museum there dedicated to communism, actually. It's if you go in this little museum, it's a 15-year-old girl just learning her English. And so we went there. There wasn't anything else to do. We saw the castle ruins. And so we wanted to go to this little museum. And so you go in the upstairs, this museum, and all it is all these former models of under the Soviet era when they had occupied Estonia. And these were all central planning utopias that they had designed for Estonia. And in this case, it was for Viljandi, and they had these models. And they kept them in this museum because they ridiculed them. This girl walks around and ridicules the central planning efforts and ignorance of her grandparents' generation or parents' generation, and laughing about how stupid and ignorant they were with all of their utopian schemes for how they were going to be great corn farmers in Viljandi, Estonia. In this, you know, it was very. She thought it was very funny, and I've always been struck by that, because I think that if we look at what these guys are really doing, the central planners have overreached. They're hurting people everywhere. They're out of control in a way that the average person is starting to see the impact in their life, provided that we do a good job telling their stories and getting that word out there. And someday I think that our children will look back on what these people have been doing as central planners, and they will laugh at them too, in the same way. And just like we would make fun of somebody arguing about how many angels would dance on the head of a pin, you know, from the medieval ages, we're going to look back and laugh about how the incredible arguments and waste of energy, money, and time that they've spent moving Legos around, you know, for a central planning model for planning, if anybody's been to those, or how many blades of eelgrass can grow in a square meter of mud, you know, or whether the pocket gopher is endangered or you need 2 mounds per meter or 1. You know, these are just ridiculous conversations and stories for us to have right now, and that's what this central planning models come down to. So I guess with that, if we do a good job, we can make it so that even my kids, who are now 6 and 5 years old and 4, that they can be laughing when they're in high school at how ridiculous these people have been now.
Thank you.
All right.